I'm totally an amateur. I'm just some guy, but I want to try to help save the world. I feel helpless. There's so much conflict in the world right now, with several of them capable of kicking off another world war. You know, it's too bad. Our species just seems to not be able to work together at all. It seems that conflict is just in our nature, that we are just destined to be warriors for all of eternity. The conflict in the world seems so overwhelming that I thought the best way to show everyone the big picture, because you never get the whole picture, you only ever get like the smallest amount of information and only ever on one conflict, was to go through every conflict, just list the important information as impartially as possible with the most accurate death toll. Right now there are 8 major world conflicts being over 1,000 deaths per year. There are 16 minor conflicts being less than 1,000 deaths per year. A note on casualties. I'll be using fatality numbers because in most cases no one bothered to count the injured, and I'm not kidding. A note on fatalities. People fight over this number all the time. There are censuses and surveys done with differing figures all the time. You know, who's doing the counting? An accurate death toll is hard to find. In some cases, I can only acknowledge the conflict, and I don't have any fatality numbers on it at all. In others, the figures are so hugely inflated, 10,000 on one side, 20,000 on the other. I just tried to take the average. I tried to be fair, to not be biased at all. You know, and in the end, it really doesn't matter how many people died. Was it 2,000? Was it 10,000? I mean, the conflict is unacceptable. Any level of human loss is unacceptable. Those conflicts have got to stop. If in the end I missed a conflict, just make a sequel to my video. Maybe you can fill in the gaps. Maybe you miss a conflict and the third guy comes along and he makes a video. Maybe together we can all save the world through awareness. Since I'm having such a hard time finding accurate casualty or death toll numbers, I thought the best war to start with was the war in Iraq. I felt that the Western powers had done a very good job of surveys and a documentation of that conflict, that I would get the most accurate death toll. And I tell you, it wasn't easy. Iraq. In 2003, the US-led coalition invaded Iraq to oust Saddam Hussein, spread democracy, remove weapons of mass destruction, and apparently take a little oil. The major fighting is long over, but the insurgency and civil unrest continues. The fatality numbers thus far is difficult to obtain, somewhere between 100,000 dead and 1 million dead. We can confirm the coalition dead. That part was easy. Iraq security forces working with the Allies, 11,453 dead. US-led coalition dead, 4,591. Private contractors, 1,308. In total, that's 17,352. Those figures are approximately 2 months old. As for the Iraqis, well, that was a little more difficult. The Iraqi Family Health Survey said 151,000 dead. The Lancet survey said 654,965 dead. The Opinion Research Business said 1,033,000 dead. The Iraqi body count said between 91,059 dead and 99,431 dead. Well, let's go with the more friendlier Lancet survey at 654,965 dead. That's somewhere in the middle. Interestingly enough, there were Iraqis dying in Iraq before the coalition got there. The household survey said that 5.5 Iraqis per 1,000 were dying before the coalition arrived per year. But now that number is somewhere around 13.3 per 1,000. Ouch. Guess they were better off with Saddam. Unfortunately, the fighting continues with coalition forces and Iraq's security forces being hit from all sides and trying to stop others from fighting, such as Ba'ath Party loyalists, Sunni and Shia fighters, and Kurdish fighters from Iraqi Kurdistan who could belong to rebel fighters from Turkey or Iran, which we will get into next. U.S. forces are trying to train the Iraqi security forces to be able to deal with the difficult security issues so themselves can pull out. And I mean, who can blame them? This brings us to our next conflict, the Turkey-Kurdistan Workers' Party conflict. It's a minor conflict since 1978. 37,000 people have died. Kurdistan is a large area that overlaps 5 other countries: Turkey, Armenia, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. After the US-led invasion of Iraq, the UN declared Iraqi Kurdistan, or Northern Iraq, a no-fly zone, giving them essential independence. The Kurds are a semi-nomadic people, are sedentary. population fighting for their rights, and the Kurds in Iraqi Kurdistan have been providing shelter to the PKK, who are the Kurdish Workers' Party, a group that the UN, NATO, and the US have declared a terrorist group that states it's fighting for its rights. Right now, 10,000 Turkish troops are conducting military operations against the PKK, being harbored by Iraqi Kurds in northern Iraq. This leads me to my next conflict, the Arab-Israeli conflict. This is a major, major conflict which involves Iraq as a member of the Arab League and a country previously at war with Israel. This one's big and involves so many others, it's filled with controversy. Half the Arab League has been at war with Israel. They include Lebanon, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Yemen, and Palestine, but technically Palestine is sort of two countries with the Gaza Strip being under Islamic control. So maybe they count separately. Anyway, tensions started in 1920 primarily over territory. The Jewish population believes that their land is the historical homeland of the Jews. The Arab League believes that it belongs to the Palestinian people. There are a few fatality figures over this conflict. 92,000 dead between 1945 and 1995. 51,000 dead between 1950 and 2007. This conflict is larger than most others because it involves so many other countries. There have been so many wars. When does it end? The Israeli government has been putting Israeli settlements in Palestinian territory, blocking roads and killing Palestinians. But if you say anything negative about Israel in their conduct, you're labeled as anti-Semitic. It's too bad that a resolution could never be reached. Talking about the Arab League, we will continue down in Africa to the insurgency in Maghreb. It's a minor conflict. Maghreb is a larger area that encompasses 6 members of the Arab League: Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, Western Sahara, and Mauritania. These 6 countries have been experiencing Islamic insurgency since 2002. 12,000 people have died. This conflict is a continuation of the old Algerian civil war between the Algerian government and several Islamic groups in 1991 to 2002, which killed between 150,000 and 200,000 people. When the old Salafist group for preaching and combat, or GSPC, was defeated in 2002, a new Islamic group renewed the fighting and allied themselves with Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb. The fighting continues. Just below the 6 nations that make Maghreb lies Niger and Mali. They are allied together, sort of, fighting the Tuareg rebellion, a minor conflict that started in 2007. 350 people have been killed so far. The Tuareg population live in the northern areas in the Sahara Desert and are a semi-nomadic people or sedentary. They are angry over resource and development as well as pollution. There is a significant population of Tuareg people living in Libya and Algeria who have already had problems in Maghreb. Interestingly enough, the Mali side of the conflict has successfully restored peace, but Niger took a different approach, perhaps not the correct one, and are still in conflict. Too bad.